At exactly 3 a.m., Ibrahim Traoré was ripped from sleep by a call on the Red Line satellite phone, the kind only 5 people on Earth could dial. His heart pounded. He reached for it with hands still slick with sweat. On the other end, Tehran. It was Iran's foreign minister, his voice cold and urgent. "Mr. President, forgive the hour, but while we speak, Israeli missiles are lighting up our cities." Outside the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, the night was silent, the sky black. But inside, chaos stirred. Security forces moved fast. They knew this wasn't a drill. Traoré had been watching the Iran-Israel escalation from a distance. Like the rest of Africa, Burkina Faso had been out of the line of fire. Until now, then came the bombshell. Iran has an offer, one that could change the balance of global power and put Africa, your Africa, at the center of it. Traoré sat upright. "How can Burkina Faso assist?" he asked, military instincts kicking in. But Iran wasn't just asking for help. They were planning a full-scale African partnership to counter Israel. "We have proof," the minister continued. "Israel is using African soil for hidden operations, drone bases, spy centers, black ops. They see your continent as a military playground." Traoré's blood ran cold. Months earlier, he'd exposed Israeli surveillance inside his borders. But this was on another level. Now, Iran was proposing something unthinkable. Full missile defense systems for Burkina Faso, naval access deals to gain control over African waters, energy independence from Western oil, billions in infrastructure, and intelligence tech, all in exchange for one thing: becoming Iran's strategic partner in Africa. "Technical teams would be based in your country," said the minister, "and, if necessary, we would need access to your airspace for defensive strikes." Traoré froze. He knew exactly what that meant. Missile launches from Burkina Faso, aimed at Israeli targets in Africa. "You're asking me to drag my country into your war?" "No, Mr. President," the voice replied coldly. "We're showing you it's already here. Either you remain a silent victim of Israeli expansion, or you become a leader of African resistance." It hit hard. Traoré had seen it before. African presidents who questioned Israeli or Western interests suddenly vanished. Some were overthrown, some fell ill, others died in freak accidents. The line went dead. His hands trembled. By 4 a.m., his war cabinet was assembled. Bleary-eyed ministers stared at classified intelligence reports piled on the table. Defense Minister Kabor didn't mince words. "Israel has military advisors in 12 African nations, ports, bases, training camps. And now Iran wants to build a shadow alliance to strike back." He laid out satellite images of hidden Israeli military zones in neighboring countries. Foreign Minister Ouagadougou added, "Iran is offering us the tools to fight back. But if we say yes, we're at war. And what happens next could change Africa's fate forever." What Traoré discovered next would shake the entire continent. His intelligence chief, Ouedraogo, stepped forward with grim urgency. "Mr. President," he began, "Israeli forces aren't just watching Africa, they're embedded deep inside it. 12 countries, covert missions, real soldiers, real weapons. Africa isn't a neutral ground, it's already a hidden front line in their Middle Eastern war." He pointed to hard evidence: Israeli-trained Ethiopian eunuchs preparing for cross-border operations, South African ports secretly supporting Israeli naval intel, Israeli security contractors guarding DRC mines, sending reports straight to Tel Aviv. Iran wasn't just offering help, they were offering a full-blown plan to wipe this network out. Foreign Minister Ouedraogo leaned in. "They'll shut down the surveillance, replace Israeli-linked contracts, and expose every hidden operation on this continent. But we must understand, if we accept this, we become official enemies of Israel." Traoré didn't flinch. He rubbed his temples, his voice low. "According to this data, we're already in their war. We just didn't know it." Then came the moment that stunned his entire team. "Schedule a secure video conference with Tehran. Tomorrow night, I want to hear everything they're offering directly." Advisors froze. Ouedraogo spoke carefully. "Sir, Israeli intelligence will detect this. There's no going back. We risk diplomatic collapse." "Maybe," Traoré replied, his voice turning steely. "But maybe that collapse is overdue. Africa has been a chessboard for too long. It's time we moved our own pieces." And what happened next would send shockwaves across the world. The next night's video call with Iranian commanders was explosive. They laid everything bare: high-tech missile defense systems worth billions, energy partnerships that would break Africa's oil dependency, and, most dangerously, proof Israel was building a second warfront inside Africa, using African soil to strike Iran and its allies. Everyone expected Traoré to say yes for Burkina Faso. Instead, he did something no one saw coming. "This doesn't just affect my country," he said. "It affects all of Africa. If we move forward, it must be with the African Union. This war is on all our doorsteps." Within 24 hours, Traoré had shared Iran's intelligence with leaders across Africa. The reaction was swift and stunned. Most African presidents had no idea the extent of Israeli presence on their soil. What followed was historic. An emergency African Union summit was called. Iran presented its case directly. Some nations feared being dragged into Middle Eastern chaos. Others, especially those already under surveillance, welcomed a counterstrike. 6 months later, Africa was transformed. Several countries expelled Israeli operatives after uncovering secret bases and unauthorized operations. A new African defense alliance was formed for the first time. A united military front to resist foreign interference. Iran was granted observer status, providing defense tech. But under African control, strict protocols were enacted to monitor all foreign military activity on the continent, but the personal price was brutal. In just a few months, President Traoré survived 3 assassination attempts. Israeli cyberacts and economic pressure intensified. Western allies imposed sanctions, yet inside Africa, something powerful had shifted. The public backed in him. They saw a leader not begging for foreign aid, but standing toe-to-toe with global powers. 1 year later, at the United Nations, he stood before the world and said, when Iran called at their darkest hour, we saw our own reflection, a continent long used, manipulated, ignored. We didn't join their war. We finally stood up in ours, the war for African sovereignty. He gestured toward the hall, now filled with unified African delegates. Today, Africa is not a battleground for others. We choose our alliances, we protect our people, and we will never again be silent. The applause thundered, not just in the chamber, but across a continent that had finally found its voice. That 3 o'clock a.m. phone call didn't just wake up Traoré, it woke up Africa.